Now the next thing, the very best of these, but usually these are ones that you have to pay for, is on CCEL or other sites like that, when they are in the theological or markup language, or XML. This is like a specifically theological program that these documents are run through, so all of the Hebrew is tagged, all of, those sorts of things. It's well tagged, but you do have to pay for it. So those you would just have to check with a supervisor if this is what you can find, if this is what's available. You have to first of all check with a supervisor about copyrights, because sometimes these theological markup language, those can be copyrighted. We may still be able to use them as a compare file, but you have to check, and then you also have to pay for them most of the time. So make sure to check with your supervisor about those. So check to see the format of the file. Again, enter that into the sets for E4 spreadsheet, and is it a plain text, scanned image, formatted or tagged, or Bible software. And then also show any notes, editorial notes that would go along with it. If it's plain text or a scanned image, those will definitely have to have editorial notes next to them. What do you want done with it? Do you need somebody to go through the whole thing and proofread and change it? If that's the case, a definite editorial note would have to be on there. Alright, so you're checking for the completeness of file, errors for the file format. Again, the formatted or tagged or the Bible software are the best. And then the editorial questions. These are things that you ask yourself at the end of, when you're actually evaluating a document. Our commitment, E4 is an absolute commitment to improving and making books as useful as they can be in the electronic edition. So these are some questions to ask. Would it be better if think of yourself as the customer, as the end user. Would it be better to have this document as 3 smaller documents rather than 1 large one? Would it be easier to use if it were merged into one document from 25 small ones? Those sorts of things. Can it be done? Should you do it? Those sorts of things. You're going to have to note that down, again, in the collection tracker if that's what you want to have done. Would it be better to change the title? Is it, some of the 19th century titles are 3 feet long. That's maybe not so helpful for the end user. Is this truly the best document for your set? We recently went through something called we went through the works of Alexander Maclaren, and at first we thought we were going to do a complete works of Alexander Maclaren, but all that consisted of was his exposition of the Holy Scriptures, which was a long book set, and then his Life of David. Those are the only things that we could find for Alexander Maclaren. Ultimately, we thought it would be more helpful to have the Life of David included in a variety set rather than just focus on the exposition of the Holy Scriptures for that set. We thought that would be more useful for the end user. Would it be better to include the document elsewhere? Does it flow with the set? Is your set cohesive? Look at the end, when you're done on the Sets for E4 spreadsheet, look at all of the different works that you have. Are they cohesive? Do they go together? Is this something that the user is going to be interested in using together? Those sorts of things. Are all of the books and documents in the set in the form most useful to the customer? This kind of goes back to the split or merge, but also if it's a huge work like Calvin's commentaries or something like that, would it be better to think about some of the different tagging options? Would it be better to format into different chapters, things like that? Look at it carefully, and as an editor, see what you would do. Sometimes you're not going to be able to do this. These sorts of editorial changes, if they're endemic to the book, if you have to change the entire book, you're going to want to ask your supervisor. Do a little presentation and say, this book would be much more useful if, and then present it and ask if the taggers can do that. Ask if you have to do it. Those sorts of things. And then how can you make this set even better with a detailed table of contents? Those sorts of things. Think about the way, if you were a user, how would you like to use this book? So as an editor, you're checking for the completeness of the file. You're checking for errors. Is this actually worth using? You're checking for the file format used, and you're noting that down. If there are problems with the file format, if it's a scanned image that's going to need extensive work, make sure to note that and ask your supervisor. And then ask these editorial questions and make sure that you have all documents in the form most useful for the customer.